My name is Maria Thomas, and you are watching Scoreboard, coming to you from SPORTSIDE Medical Services in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Hi, welcome to Scoreboard. We are coming to you now from Toronto, Canada. I am here with TAMARA DIXON. She is a rugby coach. She is a strong leader in rugby. She plays rugby for both Canada and for Jamaica. She plays rugby union and rugby league in 15s, 10s, and 7s. This is a woman who does it all. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about the team, the Guardian Angels. And this is a new team and actually an entire new concept that has been introduced this year in rugby in Ontario. So TAMARA, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It is always a pleasure. First of all, what encouraged you to create the team Guardian Angels?
Good question. As we know, there are many routes for people to exit their sport. It could be coaching, it could be refereeing, it could be volunteering, entrepreneurship, anything where they feel comfortable involved. They can be involved in their sport, but also step away from playing physically. But many sports also have a master's program where if you don't want to dabble in those realms, or you do, but you still want to play, there's an option. And so for many years, my teammates and I, we thought about starting a team where women who are more mature and have some responsibilities with their families, but also have some responsibilities with their careers and cannot attend the training sessions throughout the week, but still are physically fit to play the game. And so we realized doing that in the other teams that also existed was not possible. Many of us struggled to attend training sessions, and when we did, we'd be running late, or when we attended the training sessions, it was a training session full of a lot of younger people, and so we realized there was a lot of building and a lot of things that were happening that we were a little bit, I guess, past. And so it was difficult. And we also realized that when we attended these training sessions, and if we didn't attend the training sessions, we still earned spots on the roster. And that started to become difficult because we had younger players who were putting more effort and more time into their training sessions, but because of skill, we would take their spots on the roster. And so last year was the year we decided we should stop that. We decided the only way to do that is to start our own team, our own program. It is the first in Ontario. It may be one of the first in Canada. And so this team is mainly for women who are 30 plus, who do not have the access to training sessions during the week, because here in Canada we train 2 to 3 times a week, and then you have your games on the weekends. And so these women would get together and we would play on the Saturdays in the same leagues as the leagues that we played with previously. And so we would still have the same level of competition, but now we have the issue where we are not inflicting any type of damage or any type of disrespect to those women who've been attending training sessions and want to play and earn their spot, because it is a pay-to-play type of league. So you have women who are paying anywhere from $350 to $400, and so paying that money and someone else taking your position and not attending the training sessions becomes a conflict.
Yeah.
And we realized over the years it started to get to be a little bit more of an issue than in the past, and so something needed to be done, and that's where the idea came from. But besides the training sessions, that would only apply to those who are still in the league, and so you're looking at half of the women, but there are many women who are out of the league and haven't played from anywhere from 2 to 15 years. And so the training sessions in terms of affecting other people was not the issue. The issue was, can I attend the training session when I have a child, or 2 or 3 or 4,
Yeah.
or when I'm expected to work anywhere from 40 to 60-hour jobs. And so that was a situation where we had to think about what can we do where we can make these women access this. And so we had to think of a well-rounded, I guess, platform where it's not just the rugby, it has to be other things to allow these women to be able to participate. So we thought about childcare. That's something that is dismissed in many countries, many cities, and it has to be accessible and it has to be affordable. And that's something that we struggle with in Canada in terms of having accessible and affordable childcare, and that's something that we wanted to implement into our team. And so what we did is we hired a babysitter, and this babysitter would take care of the children while the mothers are there, because even though the mothers may have access to other types of family members, spouses that can take care of their children, a lot of them feel that they want their children to be at the game and they want their children to be with them. That's the time they spend with them on the weekends. So that was one of the major things that we implemented into the team. Then we also looked at physical fitness. A lot of these women, they train on their own, and that's why we were very comfortable starting this program, because it wasn't the fitness that was the problem. Many of these women are marathon runners. They're into Pilates, they're into yoga, they're into other types of physical activity. And if you look at our website, you can see some of the things that these women are into. And so we needed to hire proper AT programs, right? And so the ATs at our games are hired by one of our current members and founders of the team. And so she knows that these would be people that are qualified and well-rounded and could work with experienced women who have been taped or taken care of for many years at very high levels. Also, besides the AT, so the athletic therapy, we looked at a massage therapist, because many of these women haven't played for many years. Your body is your body. And so to take care of your body, some of them were saying, I haven't played in so long, I don't know if I can just run out there and do what I used to do. We said, no problem. We hired a massage therapist. So this massage therapist would activate certain muscles and allow the women to feel comfortable, ready to start their warm-up and ready to start their game. And so these are certain things that we implemented into our team that aren't on other teams, because to be honest with you, many of these teams have started many years ago and they're just continuing with the same platforms that they have. But for us, looking at who our target market, our target players would be, we had to look into those items. And so making sure that we had comfortable ATs that are comfortable working with older women who are mature, and older women who've played at a national level and are very, very direct on what they need to be done and how it needs to be done, plus the massage therapist and the child care. And the last thing that we implemented was having gear that was made by women and would be very comfortable for women to wear, because as you know, in the rugby world, a lot of the gear is very uncomfortable and not fit for women and all of her beautiful attributes. So what we decided to do is we went to a former Canada rugby player, Barbara Mervin, and she has her gear called Aptuella, and that gear is specifically made for a woman's shape, and you can order different types of things made for a particular shape. And so we have all of our women looking beautiful in their kit and feeling comfortable in their kit because they know it was made for them. So those are some of the major points of why we decided to start the team and different things that we thought needed to be a part of the program.
So it's very much player-oriented, player-centric, and driven by the players, which I think is a very interesting model. When you look at development these days, it seems to be, yes, we might look at grassroots, but it's always sort of the top looking at the bottom and where can we work out. And I think that this team, Guardian Angels, is filling a really important gap where, you have women who are role models and who continue to be in a position to be role models to other players. One of the things I found that was very interesting was the younger teams, the impressions that they had initially meeting the team.
Yes.
And then playing the team and then learning, because I think most at this point are learning about the values and the movement that is Guardian Angels after playing the team.
Yeah, I'll speak on that. So we do have different women from different backgrounds, and so we have women who are age 31 to 52 on the team, and we have women from different types of levels. As you know, Maria Thomas is also on our team, and Maria has played on a national level, right? And we have different types of women who've played at a national level, provincial level, university, college, etc. And so when you have the mixture of the different types of experiences on the field, after the game is where the learning really starts, besides during the game where you can have those 1-2 points that we do give the younger players. So in Canada, the rugby base, if we were to look at the average for club, I believe the average for club is about 22, 23. So it's a very young average. And so what was happening with those who are older, such as myself being 36, you find that some of those young players, they come into the team and they don't know who you are and they don't know what you've done, and they discredit you very quickly because of your age. And so with that being said, you have women who are experiencing that in every club. And so now we have the situation where we play together. The young women for the first time can respect women who are older because they realize it's not about age, it's about how you play, it's about your your morals on the field and off the field, and how you communicate in terms of the rugby vibe, right? And what happens after the game. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to bring back a tradition that we usually have in rugby. And after you have your game on the field, you move off to the field, and it's a bit of a social. And that has been lost in many of the teams, the younger teams. One reason is usually you buy your peer a drink. And because a lot of the rugby players are very young, they cannot drink. And so that's one of the reasons a lot of them decide to pack up and go. What they don't understand, it is not really about the drink. You can buy Gatorade, you can have water. It's more about the social effect and the learning. And so we brought back a tradition where it kind of forced the younger people to stay behind. And what we did is we had a award called the Halo Award. And we had different types of sponsors that donated to this. You have SPORTSIDE Medical, which you will meet Karen CHROBAK shortly. We also had Aptuella, which I spoke about, and then we also had Langara. And all these sponsors got together and donated so that we can give awards after the game and also speak about why we're awarding these awards. So we call it providing the woman with her halo. And this is one of the donations that we received from Aptuella. And so what we do is we gather as a group, we have the woman of the match, we announce that first, and then we discuss the halo. And with that award, we talk about the different accolades of those women. And some of these young women who are sitting there know of these women or don't know of these women, but their eyes lighten up because they realized, A, they've had so many different facets of experience in rugby. B, they played at the same university that they went to or school. Or C, they played at their club, many years ago. Or even D, they played with their parents or their family members. And so what you have is women respecting women at different stages, because the media really focuses on young women. Once you're a particular age, you're dismissed from the camera, you're dismissed from the eye, and you're dismissed from entertainment. And so we find that we're bringing that into our own personal life. And so what we wanted to do is allow the young women to see that there is more rugby past 24, because we do have rugby dying at about 24 in Ontario. A lot of the women are discouraged, unmotivated. It is because these struggles of getting their career started, possibly significant others and the responsibilities they have at home. And so with this team, these women can now see that there are different types of routes that they can take and still continue to play rugby and still have that family oriented, experience that they've had when they're younger. It's just change, it's different. It's not better, but it's just a different experience. And so it's very interesting to see them starting to bond with the women after they start to find someone they have a connection to, and they sit down and they talk, whether they have an alcoholic beverage or just a Gatorade. You now have women staying back after the game and mingling, and before it was take my cleats and out.
One of the things that I love to see after the games is even the women who see, look, that woman who was just making every kick on the field has just picked up 3 children. The husbands that came along and they're sitting in tents and they're supporting the children, cheering on their parents and seeing this. And again, even tying it into the Halo Awards, even for me, hearing all the contributions that these women continue to make, even though it's not on the pitch, it's the behind the scenes work that goes into making rugby possible for everyone involved. And seeing it all come together in one place as a community and setting an example, because I think most athletes are offered a very narrow pathway that includes, you go from here A to B to C. And if you mix up any of those steps or you get pushed out at any of those levels, that you don't have a future anymore, or that to choose a future, you have to sacrifice everything else in your life. And this is showing that there's a way to balance it. You just have to be committed, make the commitment yourself, because I know all of the Angels are making contributions to the team in their own ways and coming together. And I really love the way that the team sort of perpetuates the values and the things that we want to see happen in a way that is feasible and manageable and inclusive of everyone women who have been marginalized from rugby, essentially.
Absolutely. And interesting that you said the different things that women were involved in, such as yourself being involved in different types of administrative and even, I guess you would call it, national levels of rugby in terms of the other side of it. And what would you call it, per se, in certain committees that you're involved in?
Well, yes, it's committees, it's union boards. I know
Okay.
some of the women are presidents of their clubs.
Yes.
There are women who
Exactly.
are working for Ontario
Yes.
Rugby, for Rugby Canada.
Yes.
And all of these positions that even I, for a lot of the women, was not aware of. And I love going and reading everyone's
Yeah.
little blurbs about them. They're funny, they have jokes in it.
Yeah.
And it's such a comfortable environment.
Yeah.
And it opens up your eyes to see that everything doesn't have to be so competitive. We can work together. We can have competition and still be viable in a competition without it being a confrontation. It could be something positive.
And just to continue on with what Maria was saying, is for the young women to understand that even though Maria is part of all these types of organizations and these types of unions, she's still a player, because a lot of them separate those types of things, and they feel that if you're a player, then you can't be involved on that level. And getting them to understand the only way to keep women in rugby and to lift the state of women's rugby is to be involved in these types of organizations, because once we're done, then we need the next generation to slide in.
We do, definitely. And we need to set good examples. We need to, you know, sometimes it can be frustrating. Sometimes it's hard work. But if we do it, it's going to make it better for everyone that comes behind. And there are women who, before us, fought an even harder battle and had fewer options. And they paved the way for us to be able to do this.
Yes.
So I think that we really have to credit them as well and thank them for everything they've done. Because they have definitely understood what it is to have someone turn away from them and not acknowledge what they've done.
Yes.
And there's so much work that's being done to make even this possible. I just want to wrap up, but can you tell me 3 things that you would say have influenced you to help you in creating Guardian Angels, and 3 qualities that you would say Guardian Angels have and demonstrate?
So the first thing I guess I would say is lifelong learning. The Guardian Angels is about continuing to learn different facets of rugby on the field and off the field. And a lot of people think learning stops at a particular age. And the young people can see that on the field, that as we continue to play, we've been very successful this year, you know, very blessed in terms of we are currently in 2nd place, moving into the playoffs. But lifelong learning would be one thing that I would say. What was the question that you asked? You wanted to know, you had 2 questions in one. The first one was?
One was you could list, I mean, if one is the one that stands out the most, that's fine, but also, what are 3 qualities that you would say would represent Guardian Angels? So if I meet a Guardian Angel, I already know that this woman is these qualities.
Wow, that's to time it down to 3. Guardian Angels, I would say the first thing is graceful. In everything they do, the way that we dress each other, the way that we dress others, the way that we play, very graceful, but very assertive in the same manner as well. Things that we do on the field is very direct, the way that we speak to each other and the way that we get things done. So if I were to look on the playing side of things, there's 2 sides to us, very graceful but very assertive. If I were to look at the accolade side of things of all the Angels, I would say very dedicated. Many of these women are dedicated, they were dedicated, and they still are dedicated into growing rugby. You could see by many of them are still coaching, many of them are still involved in management positions, so dedicated as well. And if I were to look on why a lot of these women are on the team and why they chose to be a part of Guardian Angels, is family, community. It was a part of them. Many of these women spoke about the fact that there was something missing from their lives. They knew it was rugby, but they didn't know how to get involved in rugby because of their jobs, their family, and their responsibilities. And a lot of them say that hole has been missed. And only rugby players can really understand that, because rugby is a sport that a lot of people continue as they get, you know, more mature and older. A lot of sports kind of stop, and there's no access for you to play it at a particular age, except for rugby. It's very, very different all over the world. And community and family. Yeah, well,
on that note, I want to say thank you so much for including me in this team. I can speak to coming onto a team where I've known about 2 or 3 of the women and being completely welcome. We know all the songs to sing on the bus, on going on tour, just feeling like, I dropped into my team. I felt like, completely included. It was a wonderful feeling. Amazing to see how many people show up on the field that I wasn't even expecting to see, and how welcoming it has made rugby. It's made rugby really what that is, I think, for rugby players. And it makes me feel very hopeful and very excited for the future, because I think that we're sharing this passion that gets lost in technology and all of these other outlets that we have. I am looking forward to following the Guardian Angels and everything that they do. And I wish you the best in every single way. I don't even think you need that from me. It's going to happen anyways. And I would like to thank you on behalf of Scoreboard for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for being part of the Guardian Angels. And I hope to see you again next year, and possibly some other teammates, possibly from Trinidad.
Good evening, Trinidad Tobago. Welcome to another edition of Scoreboard here on ACT, and it's always a pleasure to be in your company every Tuesday evening between the hours of 8 and 9.
Welcome to Scoreboard. I am here with the Chief Medical Officer for Rugby Ontario, and her name is Karen CHROBAK. I'm very excited to be at her medical sports clinic, which is the SPORTSIDE medical clinic. And she does, as I've said, so much work with Rugby Ontario, but also she works very closely and is one of the founders of the Guardian Angels rugby team. So we're here today to find out a little bit more about how you take care of teams, because that medical component in preparing them for teams, dealing with any injuries, and working on rehab is so important to player welfare. And it's something that is getting a lot of attention now, but sometimes still gets overlooked when you actually speak to players and in their experiences. So Karen, can you just let me know some of the services that you offer here?
Yes, so we offer a wide variety of services. We target specifically athletes. I would say about 90 to 95% of our patients are athletes, and the other 5% are often their families. So we in clinic offer sports chiropractic, sports physiotherapy, sports massage. We also have registered kinesiologists, registered athletic therapists, and we have certified strength and conditioning coaches and performance coaches. We've recently also added on masters in sports nutrition and performance nutrition.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes.
So you work with rugby. Do you work with any other sports teams?
We work with close to 75 to 80 teams. So rugby is what takes up most of our time in the summer, and then in the fall 7 seasons. And the other teams we work with are primarily hockey. We do a lot of boxing, MMA, amateur fighting. We also work with soccer, football leagues, you name it. We work with any sport.
Right.
Yeah.
So those are some pretty high collision,
Yes.
not even contact, collision sports that you deal with. So definitely this is the place to come to.
Yeah.
What do you find is different in the dynamics between working with team sports and working with individual athletes?
It's just the pace of things mainly. So we offer different facets to our business. So we certify, so there's 4 different facets. One is education and training. So I'm a emergency care instructor and a teacher through the Canadian Red Cross. So we bring in people who we'd like to work for us, and we train them in emergency first response, which is a level higher than your regular standard first aid. It teaches everything sport related in terms of like spinal injuries and musculoskeletal injuries and head injuries and the next level of care. So that is a 40-hour course, and you have to pass not only a written test but hands-on testing as well. When our therapists have that certification, then we can place them. So the second aspect of our company is therapist placement. So when teams call us up and they ask us for a therapist to work with their team, we'll train them, we'll make them familiar with the sport they're working with, we'll get a police background check done. We make sure their certifications are in place, and then any extra certifications that they need for that specific sport. So for example, rugby, we make sure that every therapist we have goes through the World Rugby training courses for Rugby Ready, so they understand the laws of the game, because they need to know when to run on the field and what blood subs are and what front row subs are and the specifics of the game. And they also have to complete a World Rugby concussion management certificate as well. Whereas with hockey, they have to do what's called a Respect in Sport, and then also a trainer's level 2 certificate. So different sports require different things. Okay. So we make sure that therapist has whatever the requirements are of that sport, and then we can place them with that sport. If they haven't worked that sport before, we find it very important for them to go out and shadow with younger age groups and then work their way up to the premier level. And people who get first priority to work with sport are people who have played that sport because they
Okay.
understand the ins and outs.
Right.
So those are the first two facets of the business. The third one is in clinic, and then we do treatment for a lot of athletic injuries and a lot of rehab for athletes and prehab. And then the fourth component is the conditioning standpoint. So we run year-round conditioning courses and one-on-one training for athletes who want to
Okay.
take their training to the next level.
Right.
So it's important to have all these different facets because then the person, it comes full circle. So the person on the field is getting, all the people that are working with their team are trained appropriately. The person on the field can refer to our clinic and we can rehab them if they get injured. We also chat back with the therapist so when they're getting back on the field.
Right.
If they want to train in the off season, they know that we know their previous injuries and you can accommodate and stuff like that. So it all comes full circle and it's a nice big package.
Yeah, that continuity is so important, especially when you're looking at player welfare.
Yeah.
You know, and you'll have maybe someone who's saying, well, just go on and play, you'll be fine, or a player who says, I'm fine, you know, so.
Well, and it's really nice for the athletes too when they go down on the field and someone's helping them and then they see that same person later in clinic. Or they know that, oh, I spoke to that person earlier this morning, so I already know what happened.
And injuries are so personal, so
Yeah.
to see someone that knows your history, you feel so much safer on the field because sometimes you're just like, don't touch me, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I think that offers something so important.
Yeah. And
So
it's
people
not
feel
an,
safe.
it's an unwritten rule here, kind of all of our therapists, they're all athletes. So when people come in and they say, they're crying because they tore their ACL and their season's done, I say, I did that as well.
Yeah.
And I'm still playing rugby every Saturday and I'm still kicking butt. So it's nice that they can come see people who have been through the same situations and they're not trying to address it from unknown territory.
Yeah, and even from my experience with Guardian Angels and seeing your team out there,
Yeah.
and even my mom, as soon as my mom and dad came, first time they've ever seen me play rugby,
Yeah.
and they were like, oh, look, that tent, is that your tent?
Aw.
They saw it right off the bat, and they were so pleased of the professionalism, and,
Thank you.
especially my mom is kind of like, rugby, and she saw the massage tables and everything there, and just kind of breathed a sigh of relief, like,
Yeah.
okay, it's gonna be okay, and I think that's very important for parents as well,
Yeah,
to
a
know
lot
that their
of
children are
parents,
taken care of.
Yeah, they say that, and they now recognize the black shirts and the red with them, and they say, we love your staff because no matter what happens, we could be covering 20 games on a weekend. If some kid gets injured, they're getting a phone call from our office manager on Monday morning to see how they're feeling.
Yes.
So we get a lot of positive feedback on just the follow-ups, even if it's not our team. We had a kid 2 weekends ago fractured his femur, the big
wow.
bone
Yeah.
in your leg, and we weren't even working with that team. I called them up, made sure everything was okay, and it's like, it's really nice of you to do that, right? So it's so important to have that personal approach to things, and then also have people that understand the sport and they're always watching your back.
That's why I need to call today for my appointment in the next 2 weeks to get in.
You're always welcome.
Yeah, I know. It's wonderful that everyone that I've seen here is so happy.
Yes.
Your team
Yeah.
has such a great energy.
Yes.
You come in and you just want to work out. They identify with you. They're not pushing you too hard, but they're kind of like, come on, you can do this.
Yeah.
Here's a better way of doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that this is such a wonderful business and endeavor that is
Thank
giving
you.
so much and changing the way that we look at service and look at medical service.
Thank you.
It's not rushed to emergency because the ambulance was on the field and get a cast that has to get reset again later.
Yeah.
It's a really wonderful thing. It's a family here, and I think that it's perfect. You can tell that you're one of the founders of Guardian Angels
Thank you very much.
and how these things just work hand in hand. And I really hope that we can see more development like this obviously in Trinidad and Tobago and other places around the world that can follow the example of what you're doing here.
Thank you very much. I think that means a lot that you mentioned the team approach because I find a lot of medical is in silos. And you'll have teams that'll just call up a random therapist to say, oh, hey, can you cover this game and this one-off game and this and that? And it's just silos. But we have anywhere from 20 to 30 therapists that we're working with all the time, just in our core group, and then we have more outside of that. And when you treat your employees well and they love what they do, they're going to put in the extra effort. And everyone that goes out, people recognize them, they see the same faces. If we have a game run late and another one's starting early, they say, oh, I'll stay, I'll cover this, I'll do that. And I think it's so important when you're starting to develop the medical side of things, to establish the people that you're going to be using and making sure they're all on the same page instead of just grabbing random people from random clinics who don't know who anyone is and putting them on the field. If you don't have that communication and signals and all sorts of stuff in place and protocol, it just doesn't run as smoothly.
Yeah.
So,
And it seems like the workload is spread out very
yes.
well, because we have some amazing doctors in Trinidad and Tobago
Mhm.
that are so supportive of us in rugby
Yeah.
and really go the extra mile. And if we could have 20 of them, it'd be
Yeah,
great. But
because
you
I
know,
have one person that's burnt out.
and you
right?
see where they're working so hard, and they'll send emails, they check up on players, they do such a great job of it, but it's one person,
Yeah.
you know. And this is somebody who has their own practice, which may or may not even be sports related sometimes,
Yeah.
you know, and they really go over and above. But having a team like that,
Yeah. My rule is I don't do anything that I can delegate. So if I have my therapist who can do certain things and I don't need to, if I can delegate it, then they will do it. If it's something only I can do, then I'll do it. And we all work together. So I can manage all these teams and that we can be successful because I'm not burnt out at the top.
Yeah.
And I think that's super important. If you had a lot of, if you had more individuals that were stepping forward and then working with said doctor that's helping you guys out, that would be very great. For
the
the
educational component is perfect for that,
Mhm.
because you know they're right here and can get their education, and they can start in one place and
Yep.
and move on up.
Yep.
So I think
And
that's
have
wonderful.
mentors. Yeah.
And your team is totally dynamic. There's a Trini on this team as well. I heard that she's very good. Trying to get her, but I can't get a spot yet. But maybe
Yeah.
by next couple of weeks.
She's fully booked. She's too
Yeah.
popular.
Yeah, she's very popular. So I love it. Coming here is just like such a fun time.
Thank you.
And thank you for everything that you do for the athletes.
No problem. It's my pleasure.
All right, well, thank you for joining us at Scoreboard. I've been here with Karen CHROBAK, and she is the Chief Medical Officer for Rugby Ontario.